Welcome back, everybody, to part 2 of Indoor Air Quality in HardHat Uncovered. We're coming to you from the HardHat Uncovered Studios in Alexandria, Virginia.
Hey, starting off real strong today.
Welcome back, Lieutenant Oates.
Hey, how you guys doing? Good to be back.
Welcome back, Dylan.
What's going on, fellas?
All right, so we're going to start this where we left off from part 1, which is...
Right on the edge of your seat. That's where we left you.
Well, actually, I was going to say about giving Dylan a nickname. So don't forget that we are still trying to find a nickname for Mr. Dylan Hipple here. And so don't forget to provide a comment, feedback, and we're going to vote. And whichever name sticks, they're going to get a Klein bolt bag that is has a lid on it that is made for dropped object prevention. So
value of $120.
But the lives you will save is priceless.
That was a good quote.
And actually, I want to say thank you to Rusty Brown. So Rusty Brown is my former boss, and actually he had sent out some suggestions on some topics that we can talk about, which was for dropped objects, which is why we're giving away this Klein bag, and to get a name for Dylan, and for leading edge tie off. So, Mr. Rusty Brown, thank you for the topic suggestion. And if you want to get a shout out from HardHat Uncovered, just reach out to us. That's all you got to do. Hey, it's free. It's free to reach out to us.
Yeah, free publicity. Yeah. Now, you can email us at hardhatuncovered@gmail.com. You can message myself, Dylan Hipple, on LinkedIn. You can message Junior Academio. I think I might have said that wrong.
You did.
It's close enough.
Yeah. Gutierrez on LinkedIn as well, or any other platform you want to reach out to us. We're probably on there.
Or Damon Oates. It's not Lieutenant Oates in LinkedIn.
Right.
It's
not?
No.
Oh, man, here I am calling you LT all the time.
Right.
All right. So on part 1, we discussed, just a little bit background story of indoor air quality, or IAQ. We talked about some of the common factors that would affect your to give you poor IAQ in your building, work site, warehouse, so forth. And then, just some of the hazards already, some of the symptoms and side effects. And but we're going to touch on those things, some of those things lightly here in part 2. But we want to get in more to explaining what are some of the common pollutants that are that will affect your indoor air quality. Some of the prevention controls and things like that. So we're going to jump into the common pollutants. So they're broken down into 3 ways. So particulates or particles, into the biological side or microbial or microbes, and then down to the chemical side, which is gas and vapor. So Dylan, why don't you jump into the particulate side?
Okay, so particulates, the main difference between particulates and then the other two is that they can't actually be killed or eliminated. They can only be captured. So, when you're thinking about a particulate, you're thinking about dust, dirt, dander, pollen, these types of things. So when I say dust, I'm talking about something that's less than 500 microns. When I'm saying dander, we're talking about anything shed from a person or an animal. So hair, skin follicles, stuff like that. And then third is pollen. So those are really the 3 main particulates, and they're hazardous to our indoor air quality because they can be light enough to be suspended in air, and they can be drawn into the building from outside. So these are all things that can be contributed from outside or inside. Yeah,
and so when you're talking about, I want to break down just a little bit further. So when we're talking about the dander, so when people are saying, "Oh man, I'm allergic to cats," I'm allergic to dogs. It's not that you're allergic to that cat or that dog.
You're allergic to their dander.
You're allergic to their dead skin cells that are coming off. And so if you are a pet owner, if you're a pet owner and, the typical thing, you're going to give your pet a bunch of loving when you get home from work. So they're all over your clothes, all over your jacket and stuff like that. And then when you come to work and then you see maybe some cat hair or dog hair on your shirt or your jacket, and you start brushing that off in the workplace or stuff like that, now you're spreading that dander on the job site. And so if you're doing that, and then a couple minutes later you hear your neighbor there start to sneeze and stuff like that, that's on you, buddy. And the same thing applies when it's pollen. You know, the pollen is just what's coming off that flower. So same concept.
Yeah, and you know, and these types of particles can be produced from certain activities that occur either inside the building, or outside the building, such as, you know, any construction, sanding of wood, sanding of drywall, even printing, copying, operating equipment like that can all create these types of particulates to be suspended in air. So there's a lot of different ways that they can be produced. So we got to figure out what those methods are and eliminate them.
Yeah. So when it actually comes down into indoor air quality, there's actually broken down into 3 danger levels. And so danger level 1 is particulates. So danger level 2 is actually the biological side, microbes, things like that. And so, you know, that's more of your bacteria, your viruses, your funguses or fungi.
Yeah, you know, one of the main ones you think about when you think of bacteria is MRSA or E. coli. I know, you know, back when I used to play football, MRSA was a big deal. There was outbreaks of MRSA everywhere. You know, whenever you get a shower, don't share your towel, stuff like that. Which, you know, you shouldn't share a towel.
Right,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah, you know, strep throat, you know, influenzas and things like that. No, I got sidetracked. I was thinking about the fungi, you know, that joke. Why was the mushroom the life of the party?
Because he was a fun guy.
He was a fun guy.
Wow.
Boy, that was a dad
dad
That was a
joke. That
dad
was
joke
terrible.
if I ever heard one.
You know, so those are things that, and I would say one of the common things when it comes to the microbes or the danger level 2 of IAQ is that's something that's going to spread, right? So now let's just say if I have the flu, all right, now I come to work because I'm the dedicated guy.
Now I got the flu.
Yeah.
Because you decided to come to work.
So
Thanks a
Dylan
lot,
got the
Junior.
flu, and then he passed it to Lieutenant Oates, and then now we can't do a podcast for you guys because we all got the flu because I brought it to work, and so that is something that you know that easily spreads, you know, throughout the workplace, throughout your home. And something interesting that I found out is that that virus or that bacteria can be airborne for up to 10 days, and that's with no movement at all. So let's just say I come in, I have the flu, I sneeze. That virus can stay in the air for 10 days, and that's if the air condition doesn't kick on, nobody walks through that room. But if there's movement in that room, now all of a sudden it's just that cycle is just continuing on, and that virus is just spreading throughout your whole workplace or your warehouse or wherever.
Right. And these level 2 biological, you know, the bacteria, the viruses, the funguses, they grow in environments typically where it's either wet or there's a lot of condensation, humidity, there's water intrusion. So these are things to look for in your building. You know, we keep talking about, you know, last part 1 we talking about water coming into your building, but a lot of these types of biological issues are created in that type of damp environment.
Yep. And Lieutenant Oates, didn't you deal with the biological side of stuff when you
In the military.
in the military? Thank you for
Nuclear,
your service, by the way,
biological,
sir.
chemical. Thank you. You're welcome.
Now, what was the reaction? And I know this is an extreme scenario, but when there was something like that was released into the atmosphere, and y'all were prepping and training, what was the immediate reaction to individuals when they had to take off their mask or something like that?
Well, I have to put on the mask. If you get an alert, you know what I'm saying? You'd have to put on your protective mask. But, yeah, it's pretty, you know, during training it wasn't as bad until we went into the live facility where they actually had nerve agents and stuff in there. Then that was pretty stressful before you went in. You know, everybody wanted to make sure that their protective mask was working properly and stuff like that. So
Everybody was yelling,
Pretty-
2319, 2319.
Now, with that being said, was there, and this is an honest question I'm asking because I don't know, was there a one-size-fit-all filter for basically, could I wear one mask that would protect me from any biological warfare that's out there? Is there, or are there different types of masks? Is there different types
No,
of?
we have one type of mask, but different filters.
Okay, so
Right.
one mask, different filters. Okay, got it. So the reason I guess built up all that was just to lead into the thing that, hey, just don't assume that just because you got an air conditioned filter that it's going to protect you from the flu or anything like that. We're gonna talk a little bit more about that in the next section of this. But I do just want to alert everyone's attention to that, because don't think you're protected because you have a HEPA filter in your air conditioner.
People put on a respirator and think they're invincible.
Yeah, a dust mask.
They're
Right.
they're wearing a P100 in a chlorine environment.
Right.
You know, some people wrap a bandana around their face.
Yeah, that works too,
You
man.
know what I mean?
The best filter out there.
All right. So what about danger level 3, Dylan?
So danger level 3 is chemical. So mainly we're talking about gases, vapors, things like that. So if the gases, you break it down into 2 categories. VOCs, which is volatile organic compounds, and then odors. When I'm talking about VOCs, we're talking about things like your paints, your thinners, your lacquers, your stains, types of formaldehyde. All these things have VOCs that can be harmful to you. When I say odor, that's anything that has a smell, right? So cleaning products, pesticides, any chemicals like that.
Yeah, when it comes to the VOCs, we were talking about is whenever Hurricane Katrina happened, and I was living down the Gulf Coast, and we had to evacuate. But actually, and I'm not going to say the government organization, but they brought down a bunch of trailers, for individuals that were, didn't have a home to go back to. But what ended up happening in these trailers is that the paneling on the walls of these trailers had formaldehyde in them, and they had poor ventilation in these buildings, and so you had just dozens and dozens of people that were getting sick from breathing in poor air quality because of all these trailers. So and they ended up having to move these families out of those trailers.
Yeah, and it's actually called sick building syndrome, where everybody in that building gets sick. It's an actual illness.
Yep, and when it comes to the odors, like we were talking about earlier, or I'm sorry, not earlier, but when we're talking about in the previous part 1 of this podcast, was that an odor is any type of smell. So it could be the Old Spice that Lieutenant Oates likes to wear, or the cool water that he likes to wear, or it could be I might be that guy that brings fish to work and cooks, warms it up in the microwave.
Don't be that guy, please. Don't be that guy. Speaking of microwave and disgusting stuff, someone was microwaving McDonald's the other day. Like, how disgusting is reheated McDonald's, man?
So, and actually, there's companies out there now that are, I guess you can call them the companies that are going green, protecting the environment. But their biggest push is that you want to or they're making products out there. That's the word I'm looking for. They're making products out there that actually remove odors. So their biggest pitch is when you don't smell anything, then the air is clean. So their products, they don't mask it with strawberry, they don't mask it with French vanilla, or anything like that. So their big push, their campaign is when you don't smell anything, then we have cleaned the air that you're breathing.
Right. You guys ever see that ozone spray or?
Yeah. Back in the back in the day.
I used to get a hotel room with some people that when I was on the road, non-smoking room, they'd go into the bathroom and smoke and then spray that stuff. They're like, yeah, you can't smell it at all. It's like, yeah, you can definitely smell the smoke, man.
And then also in part 1, I mentioned about how we confuse that new car smell or the new office smell for that, hey,
that's just the new smell.
Yeah, we write it off. Oh, that's just the new paint smell.
Right.
Or that's just the new carpet smell. That's the new whatever. But in reality, those are VOCs that are trapped in the stain protecting of the carpet and the thinners and the and the lacquers and stuff like that, or the pesticides that like Dylan had mentioned before. Those are things that are actually could be harmful to the air that we breathe.
Right. So we talked about the 3 main pollutants. So particulates, biological, and then chemical. So, Junior, why don't you start telling us, how can we prevent these types of, illnesses from affecting us, or these types of pollutants from affecting us, and how can we kind of control IAQ?
Well, the biggest thing is that you got to be able to identify. So we got to know what is it? Is it a level 1, type pollutant? Is it a level 2? Is it a level 3? Because there is no catch-all answer for all three. So let's just say for the particulates, I could use a HEPA filter for that. So I can come in, make sure I got the top of line filters, and even then I got to make sure I have the right filter, because I might just run down to my local store and just buy the $1.29, the $1.79 filter, and is that the right filter for my building?
Right.
Absolutely not. Or maybe it's a building that they have storage of chlorines or something like that, and so there's different type of filters, there's different kind of canisters and things like that are out there that are made to capture these different types of danger levels of pollutants that are in your building. So the number one thing is you got to go out there, assess it, and identify it, which would be like Lieutenant Oates always says, part of your pre-planning.
Absolutely.
You always got to do your pre-planning. And so once you identify what the pollutant source is, once you've gone out there and assessed, your HVAC system, once you've gone out there and looked at the work practices, everything that's going on in your building, once you've done that, then you can go on to the to the next thing and start figuring out how to prevent and how to control IAQ issues. But it might not even just be the type of work that you're doing or the products that you're making. It could be, what type of building am I in? Did they build this building in 1893?
Right. What did they used to do in this building? Was it a paint factory? Did they manufacture some sort of material or VOC type product? So looking at the history of the building, looking at the blueprints of the building, doing a building assessment, there's all kinds of ways to determine if you're gonna have poor indoor air quality.
Yeah, because one of the biggest things right now is that a lot of companies are buying these cheaper buildings that are in these old industrial,
rundown industrial
and
buildings,
they're converting them to whatever they need. But what is it? Was it a brake manufacturing shop? Were they making brakes in this building? Were they cutting? Were they cutting bricks in this building? What were they doing before? So all those things you need to look into, especially if you're buying a new building or something like that, or you're going to rent a new building and you're going to retrofit it to what you need. Maybe it was a company that was making certain pesticides, and now that stuff's embedded in the walls. And so you coming in and you're going to just paint the new walls. Well, that might not be the answer.
Right.
You might have to,
do full removal.
Take that stuff out and put some new stuff in, and then so you need to take those into consideration when you're looking to rent a new building or to do renovations, on a building.
And also in the bigger cities, a lot of your buildings are multi-use buildings. So what are the other businesses in that building? Same type of scenario. These other businesses could be giving off pollutants. So when you do an assessment, you need to know what other types of work the other occupants are doing, so you know how to better protect your own workers.
Yeah. Well, what if I'm downwind?
Yeah.
What if I'm downwind from a sewer facility or something like that? And then you're constantly going to have to breathe in, the contents of a sewer. Yeah. Sour water, or work if your building's downwind from a landfill, or something like that. All those things you have to take into consideration. Yeah, you might be trying to save a quick buck and rent a building or buy a building that's cheap, but you got to really take into consideration the long-term effects.
And it's cheap for a reason.
Yeah, exactly right, man.
Because they don't just give away buildings nowadays.
No, that thing is made full of asbestos material. That's why it's cheap. Something I keep mentioning, though, is about water. So we should routinely check the building for water leaks. You're looking at the seals around the doors and windows. You're looking at if there's any visibly damp places, any visibly damp parts of the building. And we do this because there could be mold growth, and we know that mold gives off what am I trying to say here? What does mold give off? It creates an environment that it has poor air quality.
Yeah, and just throwing this in, if you see mold growth in your building, don't go and just thinking I'm just going to cut this out.
Right.
You know, this is one of them areas where you probably should just get someone professional involved and let them come in and say, hey, look, this is not as big as issue as you think. Hey, I can come in and cut this little piece out and you're good to go. Or they might say, hey, look, we're gonna have to come in and Tyvek and
Tear this whole floor apart.
yeah, we're gonna have to take this whole wall out of your building. So what you don't want to do is get in there and then just find a nest of troubles because you try to again save some money and do this stuff on your own.
Yeah. Something else you can do is you can make sure that your building is maintained under a slight positive pressure. So one way you can do this is you can check to see if air comes out of your building whenever the exterior doors are open. So that'll let you know if there's positive pressure in the building.
Yeah, and so other things that we mentioned in the first part of this is we talked about the different temperatures in your room. So one office might be at 68 degrees, another might be at 78 degrees. One room might have a dehumidifier, somebody else might have a humidifier in their area. All these things you got to take a look at and make sure that it is the best air settings or the best indoor air quality that you can set your building up for. And sometimes it's you got to talk to your organization and say, hey, we can't. I understand that you want this dehumidifier or you want this humidifier in your office or something like that, but is that the best thing for everyone that's around? So again, that's something that you got to identify and assess. When you're looking at your organization, when you're looking at your building structure.
How often is that done, though? You know what I mean? Yep. You can go into plenty of office buildings and you'll see exactly what we just talked about: humidifiers, dehumidifiers, fans, heaters. You know what I mean? And nobody really ever says anything about it.
And that's why we as safety professionals have to take note that actually is a
issue.
It's an issue. It's a hazard that we should address in our profession.
Yeah, and I mentioned in part one, maybe this is a scenario where you don't have to hire a full-time industrial hygienist to come in and do air sampling or something like that. There's companies out there that deal with HVAC, and that's they're licensed professionals and stuff like that. And they can come in and say, hey, look, this is your building, this is the dimensions of your rooms, offices, this is the kind of setup that you need. Let the professionals handle it. Don't hire me to come out and make a quick buck and assess your office.
A good way to maintain control and prevent these poor air quality issues is to have a maintenance schedule or have a routine scheduled maintenance of your HVAC system. Someone's coming in and changing the filters, updating the system, knowing when the system is performing the correct way. And then, like I just said, changing filters. We also got to know what filters are right. So what types of are particulates or what types of pollutants are we having? Are we having particulates? So we can use a HEPA or a common filter, or do we need a filter that's going to collect other types of pollutants? So knowing the right filter for your system is depending on knowing what kind of pollutants are available not available but present in the building.
Yeah, and when it comes to having that maintenance, that can also be cost effective because one of the leading things that can really damage your HVAC system is having clogged filters and things like that. So you want to make sure that you have that maintenance set up for your HVAC because it can be cost effective in the end. I know we talk about ways that organizations are always trying to cut corners to save money, but this is one of those scenarios where if you cut a corner, you're not going to save money because it could end up messing your whole HVAC system, and you could be out $30, $40 or $50,000 over something as simple as replacing a $9 filter or something like that.
But sometimes you have people in a position to replace that $9 filter and they never do it. They never check it. They just pencil whip it.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And so in the long run, they hurt people way more than any.
And themselves.
Absolutely.
If they're working in that same building, they're hurting themselves.
Yeah. And so in your HVAC system, you could have boilers, furnaces. There's all kind of makeups when it comes to an HVAC system. And so if you do have anything of that nature that takes any type of gas or anything like that, make sure, and not even just for the HVAC system, just for, having your building as a necessity anyways, is to have a monitor for carbon dioxide in there. That way you'll know, hey, is there any type of gas leak? Is there any type of CO coming in? Is there any type of, do I have the right monitors in my building as well?
Right. And what are some scenarios in which, CO2 would be present? Can you think of any?
Well, just overcrowding.
Yeah. You're getting too many people in the same room exhaling. We're creating a CO2 rich environment.
Yeah. And I try to throw, and sometimes they might come off funny, but these are things that I've heard that I listen to as telltale signs of what's going on in certain situations. So if you ever hear someone say, "Man, it smells like breath in here," you know what I mean? And that's something that's, hey, look, there's not the right airflow. And if I'm in a room, and I'm not talking about someone's bad breath because they ate that fish that they warmed up in the microwave, but if you're starting to have that kind of odor that's coming in your office, you might need to check, hey, look, what are the CO2 levels in here? What do I have the right ventilation that's coming in my room, in my office?
Right. And the other thing goes right along with that is good housekeeping. Good housekeeping will eliminate these types of pollutants. Are you sweeping up, or am I working inside of a shop and I'm just sweeping while everybody's working in there and creating this giant dust cloud? What did we just talk about last episode was silica. You're exposing everyone to that silica dust. Where's that dust going? Right into the ventilation system and blowing everywhere else, right? So using the right housekeeping practices to eliminate those types of dusts and other particulates from getting into the air will be beneficial to everyone.
Yep, making sure that, not only that we have the routine check of the HVAC system, but just the routine checkup of the entire building.
Yeah.
So that might include checking the window seals, door seals, just checking all of these other areas of your building, not just your HVAC system.
Yeah, a lot of people get, before they buy a building, they get the home inspector to come in and inspect it, and then they might not ever inspect that building again, right?
Mm-hmm.
So maybe, if you don't have the knowledge or ability to inspect it, maybe bring someone in that can do it, once a year, once every 5 years, whatever you can, afford or make sense. But it does need to be routinely checked.
Yeah, and whenever it comes to, and I'm going to actually take one step back when we're talking about the HVAC system. Sometimes in the HVAC system, sometimes there's add-ons that you got to do. We're talking about making sure you have the right filter. So, the filter, again, like I mentioned earlier, is going to catch all the particulates. It's going to catch dust and dander and pollen, things like that. But that's not going to catch, like I mentioned, if someone's got a virus, a flu, or something like that. It's not gonna capture those things. So, but there's actually things that you can buy now and actually have installed in your system. Again, this is where you get with the HVAC professional, and they could tell you this, but they can actually install UV lighting into your HVAC system. And what that UV lighting does is it actually kills any viruses, any bacteria that flows into your HVAC. So that's where you would reach out to them. And again, they are the professional. But now I'm about to have that nerd moment. And so
nerd alert.
So whenever you got to make sure that you have the proper UV lighting. So just because I throw some type of UV lighting in my HVAC system,
it doesn't mean it's going to kill it.
It's just like if I have a poor air filter, if I buy that $1.99 air filter, that's not going to capture everything it needs to. So I got to make sure when it comes to the UV lighting as well. So here's the actual nerd moment. So how do you figure that out? And this, if you've ever had to study radiation or any type of lighting, but there's something called the inverse square law. No takers?
No thanks.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So the way that the inverse square law works is that, let's just say at 1 inch away from this UV lighting that I am attacking that virus or bacteria 100%. So what happens at 2 inches, even though I doubled the distance, only 1 more inch, at double the distance, I'm going to get only 25% of that power. So that same UV light that was killing bacteria at 1 inch is now only killing 25% at
2 inches.
At 2 inches, and so forth and so forth. So by the time you're up to 8 inches away,
it's not doing anything.
Yeah,
non-effective. Yeah.
Yeah, it's only 1.5 or whatever it is, 1.6, whatever that number comes down to. it's only that effective. So again, that's where the HVAC professional comes into play. So the inverse square law, in case you never heard it.
Yeah, I might have to go research that so I know. Do a little math.
For those of y'all that are studying for ASP or CSP, that's a good topic to study. So
All right, good to know.
wanted to throw that out there.
So the next topic we want to get into is just being able to lower the concentration of indoor air pollutants. So when you think about I can't think of the order of controls. That's what I'm looking for. The order of controls here.
The hierarchy.
The hierarchy of controls. There we go. Elimination, substitution, engineering, administrative, and then PPE. So first thing, source management. Let's try to eliminate it at the source, right? Mm-hmm. We're trying to do removal, substitution, enclose the source itself. Whatever you can do to completely eliminate that source from even entering your air system is the best case scenario.
And it could be something as simple as just replacing a leaking pipe or something like that. That's a common thing that happens under sinks. After a while, the seals or the joints or whatever, they start leaking or something like that. And that little drip, putting a plastic bowl under your sink to catch that drip is not the answer.
Oh, that don't work?
Well, again, that's putting that Band-Aid.
Right.
We got to remember to empty the bowl then.
Yeah, and so, or it could be something as big as like you just mentioned, Dylan, enclosing the source. So maybe I got to build a whole filtration system around the product I'm making or the work that's being done.
And like we said, the first thing is to identify the source, so we can't eliminate it if we don't identify it first. So identify, assess, and then try to eliminate if possible. If we can't eliminate it, we can't substitute it. What do we do next?
Yep. Engineering controls.
Right.
Yep. What do you think, Lieutenant Oates? What's some way that we can engineer out some of this IAQ issues?
Well, think about something like local exhaust. You know what I mean?
LEV, man.
Yep. Removing point sources of pollutants, before they can be dispersed. You got things like general dilution ventilation, HVAC systems, it dilutes and removes odors and other contaminants. Air cleaning, and involves the removal of particles from the air as the air passes through the HVAC equipment.
Yep. Dylan, administrative controls?
Yeah, so, when we talk about administrative controls, you're talking about like work schedule things, housekeeping, even education types of instances. But the first thing I think about is work schedule. So if we know that there is an exposure, we're trying to reduce that exposure by, scheduling employees to only be around that area for a limited amount of time, or we're trying to schedule the source or the pollutant from not being when there's a lot of people in the building. And what I mean by that is, example would be, if I have my building cleaned regularly, and it produces a lot of cleaners that give off a strong odor, I don't want a lot of people working in the building that day, right? So maybe I have the cleaning crew come in at night when there's nobody working. So that would be an administrative control. Maybe we limit the amount of chemicals they're allowed to use or the types of chemicals. So, hey, you can't use bleach anymore. It just is too strong of an odor. You got to use something else to clean with. And then just, controlling the location of where that chemical is being used. Hey, you can no longer use this in this room. You can no longer use bleach in the kitchen. You can't do this in this area. So those are types of administrative controls you can do to really reduce the amount of exposure.
Yeah, or maybe another type of administrative control is how the form that chemical is used in. So maybe instead of not pouring Clorox on the counter and wiping it up with the towel, maybe I'm using Clorox wipes or something like that. So maybe it's a different form of that chemical.
Yeah, and then you got housekeeping practices. So we talked about housekeeping earlier. You want to prevent that buildup of dirt, prevent that buildup of dust. Maybe you have a walk-off mat when you walk into the building. So instead of people tracking the dirt and dust all through the building, it gets knocked off right when they walk in. That's an administrative control to kind of reduce your exposure.
Having the boot brushes outside of the office.
Yeah. trash cleaning schedules, right? How often you guys taking out your trash? Are we throwing banana peels and other fruit and lunch in the trash every day, and then leaving it sit for a week, and now we got that smell and that odor in there? Or are we routinely taking it out every day at the end of every shift? What's the trash schedule? Those are little things you don't typically think of, but they do affect the indoor air quality.
If you have a swarm of gnats coming around your trash can, you got a bad schedule.
Probably time to take the trash out. Even the location of the dumpster itself. Think about that. So if we got a dumpster right by the building, but that dumpster is located right by where we bring in our makeup air from, where our ventilation goes, what are we doing? We're bringing in all that odor from that trash. So those are all things you think about during building design too.
Yep, and then just overall the training, educating your organization on these things, because like we mentioned several times, maybe I'm affecting the air quality in my office because I have brought in something that wasn't part of the original IAQ plan. Maybe I brought in a humidifier, maybe I brought in a space heater, a floor heater, or something like that, and now I'm creating an issue and not even knowing about it. So
you bringing in that flu, man.
Yeah, yeah. So even that. Think around flu season, you start seeing them signs pop up everywhere in your offices. Wash your hands.
Right.
It's flu season. Get the shot. Get your flu shot and stuff like that. So that's another type of educational control that you could put out
If
there.
you're sick, don't come to work, please.
Yeah, don't be the hero.
Yeah. You can afford that PTO day, especially if you're making Lieutenant Oates money.
Oh man, I tell you what.
Boy.
All right, so just wrapping all this up. So we mentioned it at the beginning of actually part one of this, is we talked about how indoor air quality affects all walks of life, any industry, affects you in your home. It just indoor air quality. Anytime you're going to be in a building, like I said, including your home, a warehouse, your office, anywhere where there's four walls that could be put up around you or is around you, you can be affected by poor indoor air quality. So you need to just think about those. And I do want to touch just on the home side, in your home. If you're listening to this, apply all these things in your home as well. If you got a fireplace, if you like to, or if you have a gas grill, if you have a gas dryer, just an air conditioning unit, anything like that, just take this same recommendations and advice home with you as well.
Right. And there's some things, like if you're not a safety professional and you're an employee working in a building, there's things you can do as an individual to eliminate these pollutants from entering the air. Make sure you're not blocking air vents or any type of grill. Make sure you're watering your office plants properly, and you're maintaining your office plants is that sounds like a little thing, but it's something that contributes to the poor air quality. Like we just talked about, disposing of your garbage. So if it's your trash, dispose of it daily. Store your food in the right area. Put it in the fridge, throw it out in a couple days if you don't eat it. Avoid bringing products into the building that could be harmful or somebody else doesn't like. So, I don't like Damon's cologne over here, so I'm going to tell him to stop wearing it.
Right. If it's harmful or offensive,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Try not to do it.
Yeah. And then the main thing is just notify the building manager, the facility manager, someone in the right position immediately if you suspect there's some sort of indoor air quality problem, whether that be you're consistently sneezing, coughing, sick when you're at work and then fine when you leave, or whatever that may be. If you think there's a problem, bring it up to somebody.
Yeah, and if you are in that position where you're in charge of the building maintenance or the inspection of the building, or you have the say-so of making these changes in your building, don't ignore the concerns that are brought to you. Don't just say, oh, well, here comes old nagging junior just complaining because he's got a cough every day he comes in the building. There might be something that's legitimate about the concern. Take it serious, look into it, do your due diligence, and follow up with it, because it could have long time, lasting effects on an individual.
All right, so a lot of the information we just gave you guys today, it came from OSHA's Indoor Air Quality in Commercial and Institutional Buildings booklet. If you're interested in learning more about something we talked about or discussed today, you can go find that online. It's probably 20 pages long. It's got a lot of information in there. It really breaks down all these things we're talking about. I know we broke our podcast into 2 parts. I think we're up to probably an hour and a half talking about indoor air quality. So it just shows you how much information is available on this topic.
Yep, and another great resource on the international level is the ISO 1684-2008 for building environment. So there's another great resource that you can use when you're looking at indoor air quality for your building. So, well, gentlemen, that is indoor air quality in the books. I do want to thank Trinity Safety Group for allowing us to use this office. This is a place where the magic happens. So thank you to Trinity Safety Group. You can find them at trinitysafetygroup.com. And so again, thank you to that team out there for providing the HardHat Uncovered Studios in Alexandria, Virginia.
Yeah, and I just want to go out and remind everybody of our mission, why we started this podcast in the first place. We're trying to create that positive disruption in safety. We're trying to open up the minds, provoke thought in safety. And our mission is to get safety professionals and teams to realize that making a change impacts me, making a difference impacts others, and making history will impact the world.
All right. So coming to you from the HardHat Uncovered Studios in Alexandria, Virginia, we're signing off today. So thank you, Lieutenant Oates, once again.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Dylan Hipple.
Yes, sir. Signing out.
For your knowledge and your kind words today. And remember, we still have this Klein bolt bag up for grabs. If someone can come up with a great name,
I'm keeping it if nobody gets giving me something good.
All right, gentlemen. Till next time.
See you guys.
All right.